And we are live. Welcome, everybody, to episode 17. Tonight's theme is building a water plan. We're going to go a little bit in depth on a variety of topics within the water space, so to speak. We're going to talk about, how you figure out what you need to do, what are some of your options. Maybe we'll talk about a little bit of gear as well. We got a smaller crowd on the panel tonight, but that's all right because there's never a shortage of talking for all of us. So just a little quick Florida sit rep for the weather. I'll just check in Mike's weather page, and we are all clear at least till September 10th to the 16th. That's the closest thing of anything potential possible. So next episode, we'll get you a little bit closer. But we should all be good, and everyone should enjoy their Labor Day, and don't be worrying about no hurricanes or anything else. With that said, let's get started. So I made a little outline for tonight's episode because I want us to be a little bit more structured than a lot of our normal episodes, because I want to make sure we touch base on a lot of, on some very important points, because there's a lot of information you kind of got to digest to understand and, figure out, where do I get started? Just like anything. So I figured we could start with water use. Okay. And some questions I came up with that were, what are some common uses for potable water? And just so we have a common definition, potable water is water that you can drink, basically. It may not taste like Zephyr Hills bottled water, which is the best water in the world. But it's safe to drink. So it's important when you go hiking, camping, or anywhere else, where the potable water resources are. And then what are some common uses for non-potable water? All right. So you guys want to jump in and start talking about that? Potable water versus non-potable uses.
Yeah, most obvious ones for potable water, drinking, cooking, anything related to medical, so wound cleaning, that kind of stuff.
Bathing.
Bathing, so hygiene, general hygiene. Pets. I have one that's kind of a question. Gardening. For if you use water for your garden, does it need to be potable water? Not really sure. No? Okay.
No.
And then
I wouldn't dump like stuff that's got a bunch of chemicals in your garden. But as far as like, I go ahead and finish that out.
That's why I had the question. So depending on where you get the water, so like maybe from a retention pond or something, that might be fine. But yeah, kind of depends. And then cooling off. So if we're in a hurricane season and we have an issue with a hurricane and we have no power, no water, no AC, we need a way to stay cool. So we need a source of water for that. And crafting. If you are canning food or doing something that actually requires water, that usually needs clean water. So depending on what you're doing, crafting would also play into that.
Yeah, those are some good points. And, going on with your canning, you need to put, obviously, you don't have to, but a lot of times you're using water in the jars with the food, whether you're making a broth or just, adding a little water, and then it does some natural, water from the condensation. But you also have to put water, like when you're doing pressure canning, you got to put maybe like 1.5 inches, if I remember, Brendan, when you're doing pressure canning at the bottom.
Depends on how you're doing your jars. Some people do it different. I like to do just a little bit at the bottom, and then I fill my jars up. I've seen some people completely submerge their jars and do it with no water on the inside of the jar. Depends how you like it. If you're doing water bath canning, you got to keep it up over your jar.
Yep. And then you got to, so no, that's a great point. And Pablo, to talk about, because I've always kind of looked at it with potable water, always use that when you're doing anything that's going to go inside your body. So you're drinking your food, And then you made a good point about hygiene, and I had to do a double take, but I'm like, we all have pores, so we might think it's safe for us to rub it on our skin. Of course, if we have wounds and stuff like that, you definitely don't want to do it. But we have pores, and if you're exercising, you're going to cool off. Your pores are wide open because you've been perspirating, so the water can get right back in that way. So
the skin is technically our largest organ.
yeah, that's right. Another thing we should touch on. I kind of categorize, water in another way too. I call it white water, gray water, black water. I think white water is your potable water that you can put inside. That's kind of how I look at it. It's safe to drink. Your gray water is the water it's been used for some other purpose, and you might be able to, repurpose it or recycle it in some way. I know there's been people in videos, I think they let their washer drain go out into their yard and feed their plants. And like anything else, it's just like this person says, oh yeah, you can do it. No problem. Another person says no, just like, manure, we don't do human manure, but I've probably seen 3 or 4 different books from videos about human manure. I think the process
of commercial fertilizers that use human manure.
Yeah. And you just got to treat it a little bit different than other ones. But the black water, you definitely don't want to use, because that's pretty much where all your waste, your wastewater is going. Because a lot of people with RVs, they have black water tanks and gray water tanks.
Mm-hmm.
You guys, specifically what goes in the gray water is just like your sink water.
So gray water is your sink and shower.
Yep.
And then your black water tank is your septic, septic tank.
So then your sink and shower is just basically if you're rinsing off you got your food and whatever detergents. And I think that's probably a good point, is if you're using organic or non-toxic detergents, it might make it a little bit easier for you to put that on your plants and stuff like that. So, let's see. All right. Now, how much is needed? And let me see here. Now we get for all the different types of uses that you might be in your house. What are some standards, Brendan? I know you've mentioned those many times.
So, what are our purposes? Are we doing short term? Are we doing long term?
What I'm saying, general purposes of our everyday use of water.
Just general purposes, like in current times, we use a lot of water as society goes. Washer, dryer, or well, dryer obviously not, but washer, cooking, drinking, bathing. Our toilets use 1.5 to 2 gallons every time you flush, things like that. And in the case of an emergency, I like 3 gallons per person per day. That gives you plenty to drink, cook with, and bathe with a little bit of room for error. I have gotten away with a lot less, but as far as like, if you're wanting to store long term, if you're wanting a good safe number, I like that 3 gallons per person per day.
Yeah. And I think it might be safe to say these are like averages, because there's going to be some days.
And my purpose is going to be different than your purpose, So,
yeah.
For example, and yours are going to be different than Pablo's,
Mm-hmm.
You've got your kids, the other people in your household.
Yeah.
And that's your concern. So Pablo's got himself. Well, he's also got dogs, I've got cows and sheep, and a cow will drink 40 gallons in a day, and I have had to lug 5-gallon buckets of water 1/8 of a mile from a creek to water my cows. That sucks. So being able to have a plan for that, if something, say, your well craps out and takes 10 days before you get running water again, which we had happen a few years ago, and I had to water my family, the dog, the chickens, the turkeys at the time, the cow, the goats. Not a fun thing to do when you're doing it 5 gallons at a time.
Oh yeah. And the time of year is going to be a big difference too. So if we're in the hotter months, we perspire more,
Yep.
especially if we're in an emergency situation and we're not, we don't have power, we're not under air, and we're trying alternative means to cool off. We want to shower.
My animals will legitimately double their water intake in, say, July compared to January. I've got different water stock tanks set up for all my animals because I have animals in different parts of the property. So say wintertime, I might be filling up my stock tank for the cows and the sheep once a week. A month or 2 months ago, I was filling it up once every 3 days.
Yeah. Well, Pablo, in the chat, you were talking, you put a document that, we were all chiming in about cooling off. In the information that you put in that document, how much of it pertained to water and how did it impact?
The water had two purposes. One, actually showering, because I've had to do that before. There was when I was living in West Palm, I was in an apartment on the 3rd floor. It was really hot. I took several showers and I couldn't sleep. It was so hot. I had to sleep in the car with the AC running.
Wow.
I just couldn't take it. So for the cooling section is you actually need to shower with it to cool off. But the other thing is you can one of the ways to cool down your house is with fans with the windows open. So you want to have a crosswind across the house. One fan is going to be pushing air out, and the other fan is going to be pulling air in. But the thing about the fan that's pulling air in is you want to have a wet towel in front of it, because the water in that towel is going to absorb that heat. So the air that actually goes through is going to be cooler.
Swamp cooler.
Yeah. But then at some point the towel is going to dry up, so you need to keep getting wet.
Oh, very good. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, you were mentioning that in the chat earlier. We use a lot of water when we take showers in regular times, and if we're just doing it from a hygiene perspective, we could sit there and just wet ourselves real quick, like with a small bucket, lather up, rinse off, and be done, which is going to be different than if we're trying to cool off. And then if you have anybody that is injured or sick in your house, I mean, you're going to be wetting, cloths to try to cool them off. You're going to need water to help clean out their wounds. So we could talk for hours on all the different uses and stuff in different scenarios. So the reason this part of the conversation is happening is I want people to think about, okay, yeah, water use when everything's working. Okay. But you look at it, okay, well, I have a rural property, with animals, or I'm in suburbia, or I'm in the urban center. I mean, there's differences. And then it's whether it's the winter or it's the summer. You kind of got to do a mental inventory for a lot of different scenarios throughout the year to kind of help figure out where you're going to need it. You can always bring your data to averages to figure out, like, you said 3 gallons a day makes you comfortable and stuff. And different times of year, you're going to use more or less. Now, last year we did some work on your property. Well, no, it was earlier this year. It was in February.
Yep.
So with all this rain we've had in the past couple of weeks, okay, have you had a high increase of water retention? And does that help you feed your animals instead of going to your well?
So yes, no, and yes. Previous to the work we did in early February, my property regularly flooded 4 to 6 months out of the year, depending on hurricane season. A good 2/3 of my property would be at least ankle deep water. Since we did all that work, dug the pond, dug out the creek a little more, cleared out the trees, broke up the ground, my water mediation has been beautiful. Now, that being said, my pond is slap full, my creek is slap full. There's a little bit of water on the ground in some low spots, but like other than that, my property is completely maneuverable, which is freaking awesome. We are getting enough rain right now that I'm not having to really fill up my trough so much anymore, my stock tanks, because it's being replenished what the animals are taking out. Or it's at least slowing the process down. I think the last time I filled my tanks up were maybe 4 or 5 days ago, and they're still half full. Probably won't top them off again. I try not to let them get too far below a half. Around about a third, I like to fill them back up. So I probably won't fill them up for another day or two. But there's stuff like rainwater catchment you can get into as far as gathering the natural water, putting in a pitcher pump well, things like that. If you have a high water table, we have a pretty decently high water table where I'm at. Obviously, there's water on the ground. Yeah. But there's a bunch of different ways you can go from. Kind of segue away from your question, and but to piggyback what the document you sent us the other day. So I was looking at this slightly different than I think how you were going about it. I do something that both Aaron and Derek also do. We just all call it something different. I call it baselining. So you figure out, start with the essential question, right? How much do I need? And that's going to look different for every person. If you're a single dude and you say, okay, I want 3 gallons per person per day. So 3 gallons a day. Well, how many days do you want to push out? Are you worried about a week? 2 weeks for a hurricane? Are you worried about a month? Are you worried about longer than that? The water's bulky. It's really hard to store a large amount of water. For me, it's 4 months is our drought season in Florida. I try and store enough water for me, my family, my animals for 4 months. That is my thought process of if I can get over that hump. That is hundreds of gallons of water. I have 300 gallons right now on tap at any given moment. I just recently got another 220 gallon stock tank and a 185 that I'm about to hook up to another rainwater catchment system. And that's just to make sure the animals are squared away, make sure my household's squared away, things of that nature. In the event something goes down, it's, long term. I'm on a well, so I'm more fortunate than say someone in the city. If power goes down, I can fire up a generator once a day and use my well, where people on city water don't have that luxury. I have a hand pump well. Let me tell you, it takes about 20 minutes to fill a 5-gallon bucket with that hand pump well. And that's using child labor. So it's not fun, if you're trying to fill up a cup of water, sure, that's fine. If you're trying to get 40 gallons for a cow, it's not fine.
Yeah.
But so to get back to what I was saying about the baselines, figure out the number you want, whatever that is for you. And then you start small, okay, let's fix a baseline. Go buy a $10 water filter, Life Straw, Sawyer Mini, any knockoff of either of those, doesn't really matter. Okay, so you have personal consumption taken care of. Then you work your way up, maybe get some iodine tablets, maybe get a Berkey water filter or make one yourself for a few bucks. Okay, then start looking into storage. Do you want to just get a stock tank or an IBC tote and fill it up and throw it in the backyard? Then maybe put in some rainwater catchment, then put in a pitcher pump well. We're just trying to build on top, and these things don't have to be one after another. If I had a 5-acre pond in my backyard, I really wouldn't care too much about having 300 gallons of water in an IBC tote in the front yard.
Right.
Wouldn't be a concern. What would be a concern at that point would be make sure I have enough Berkey filters. I don't have a 5-acre pond in my backyard. I've got like a 20 by 15 pond in my backyard now, and I haven't gone through a drought season yet, so I don't know if that's going to stay full. I know my creek dries out during that time. I'm curious to see how this goes. We'll find out next summer, but for right now, it's full, so I'm happy with that. If you're in a situation like apartments, really hard to store water. You're not putting an IBC tote in your living room. Now you could do a 55-gallon drum, but water's 8.4 pounds per gallon, so you're talking 450-ish pounds.
Yeah,
and it's on the heavier side.
Yeah, and it's a spectrum. So the apartment people really here are in a tough spot. So like for me, I've done my baseline for drinking water. Okay. And I know I need more for other stuff. So be 5 people in my house at any given time. We always buy like the Zephyr Hills 16.9 ounce bottles. There's 40 to a pack from Sam's. So it basically comes out to 5-ish gallons. So that's enough for each one of us for a week. So my baseline is 10 cases. I try to maintain or close to it. Gives us 2 weeks of drinking water. Now, obviously, I need more water than that, but I have other layers. I have like water bobs. So we have 2 tubs in the house. So my plan is to break one out, and I have the ones that are 100 gallons. Fill that up. And then I have the 7-gallon these blue jugs. I forgot what they're aquatainers. So having the water bob is great, but it's not portable. So that's generally, it's probably more like the third layer, because the first layer is going to be my bottled water. My second layer would be, I would just fill up the aquatainers. I got like 6 or 7 of those. So that would cover a lot of, the hygiene and cooking and stuff like that. So if I got to go break out the water bobs, then for me personally, I'm waiting to see the aliens are close to landing or something.
Have you used the water bob yet?
No.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I didn't need to use it, but I used it anyway. The little pump that comes with it.
Yeah.
They might as well not. It's useless.
Oh man.
That's why we test our systems.
Yeah, that's absolutely useless. So it took forever I have some 5-gallon jugs. Because I needed to get it out of here because I was using it for the plants and toilets or whatever, because I had it. Didn't really need it, but I was going through the process of what am I going to use this for. The pump that comes with this is absolutely useless. I went on Amazon and I built myself this. It's a little electric water pump. I got a little switch, also from Amazon. I'm using one of the batteries for my radios.
Oh.
And I can fill the 5-gallon jug in less than 1 minute.
Oh wow!
But the second purpose for this is there are retention ponds around me. So if I completely run out of the water that I have and I need to get water and purify it, I'll go to the retention pond. One hose goes in, the other hose goes in the jug. I can fill it up in less than 1 minute. Start walking back home, and that's all I need. I can just put it in a backpack. It's not that heavy.
Yeah,
I've got a brother who does a large scale version of that up in Kentucky. He lives on an off-grid homestead up in the mountains of Kentucky, and he has a sump pump that he rides around. It's his little fire truck, it's IBC tote in the back of a pickup truck, rides down the mountain to the creek, throws the sump pump in there, hooks it up, fills his tote up, rides back up the mountain, and that's his water for the however long it lasts him.
Oh yeah, now Cana Provisions sells a really nice one. It's in a really nice structure that you can attach to those 5-gallon jugs, or like on a backpack frame or something. But they're like $900. I built this for less than $100. So it's not as robust, but for what I needed to do, it still works just fine.
Yeah. Maybe we'll do a video on that. That's pretty cool. I got a couple of hand pump ones. I got at least 2 of them. And originally I got one for water and another one I got for siphoning gas. Like if I couldn't, what's that?
It's a little filter that it's also a pump. It's meant to be a camping thing. So like if you're in a creek or whatever, the filter element is in here. So you're gonna put one end in the river and it filters, and you put it the other end on your glass or container, whatever. I tried to use this on the water bob first. No way.
No way.
No, it's not pumping out nearly enough, or as too much work. That's why I ended up buying this one. So this is just something I found because it's a filter, and that was kind of like the plan. Use it for the retention pond if I need to go there. And the filter itself, it's a really good filter for particulates and stuff. But the pump, the actual pump, it's horrible.
Yeah. Well,
one thing I've used. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say is that for a variety of reasons, in environments, we should not underestimate the practicality of pumping mechanisms. I mean, whether you're out hiking, if you're trying to pull any kind of volume, I mean, we've talked about this in other podcasts where I don't want to go with whether it's a Sawyer or what you call it, what's the other, live straw, and stick in my face near the edge of the water. Gators, snakes, whatever the case may be. Plus, with those, you're not pulling any kind of volume of water, so you need some kind of mechanism to be able to draw some water out. I keep those water bags I've showed you guys to bring stuff back to the camp so then I can filter it. And in an emergency situation, if we're going to go to a retention pond, we want to minimize the amount of time we're there. Okay. Because one thing is common in the animal kingdom. Okay. Predators, okay, and prey alike go to those areas, whether they're animals or humans, and if people that are unprepared see you by the water, they're just thinking, ooh, he was smart to do that. He must have stuff. So you want to get that stuff out of there quick.
That was a thing during the Yugoslavian Civil War, that whole Sniper Alley. Yeah. It was a dude had set up this, corridor that he would just start popping people on their way to a natural spring. That it was just a little pipe sticking out of the side of the mountain that people would fill their containers up at, and he would just pick people off as they were on their way to the spring.
Yeah, I mean that's crazy and scary at the same time. So, well, you know what? We'll make a good segue.
I had an example about the amount of water you need.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
So one of the videos from Dirty Civilian on YouTube, where one of them made the experiment of only eating freeze-dried food for 30 days.
Oh, yeah.
To see what would happen by eating the food. Did it taste good? Did it provide enough energy? But also how much water he actually used. Mm-hmm. So from that experiment, I don't know if he did this on purpose, but his average was 1 gallon a day. And it divided up in half a gallon for drinking, 0.35 gallons for cooking, which was only just hydrating the freeze-dried food, and the rest was for cleaning. But even though he has a family, he was only doing that experiment for himself.
Yeah.
So that he was at the bare minimum using 1 gallon per person per day. But I mean, just right now on a regular basis, I drink 1 gallon of water a day. Even when I'm not working out or doing yard work and stuff, I'm going to be drinking more. So I agree with Brent Bender. It's at least 3 gallons a day for me. That's the bare minimum.
Yeah, I forgot all about the freeze-dried food. When I took the kids a few months back to Orlando, and I was a little concerned about the political environment at the time, and I brought the family get home bag. I allocated, because we had MREs from Sapco. We had some in there I let the kids pick, and we had a bunch of Mountain House I let the kids pick. And I always allocated at least one 16.9 ounce bottle to go for each mountain house. You don't need that much water to rehydrate it, but you also want to drink, while you're eating and stuff like that. So, so the people that are thinking about, let me just get all this, rehydrated food, or, freeze dried mostly, dehydrated food. Some people like to eat it just like it's candy, depending on what the food is. But I mean, do you guys ever rehydrate food that you've dehydrated, or you just kind of mix it in with something else?
I haven't had that. I haven't done that specifically. Like I've tried some of the freeze-dried food that I bought just to make sure it tastes good, and it does. But I haven't put myself in the position of okay, and now I'm gonna eat this. Um, I mean, I have 3 months worth for myself of that. Um, but then the other thing to consider is like if you don't have, even if you have that food, let's say you need it, you want some bread, you can make some bread. You're gonna need water for that.
Yeah.
Or like I said, the pressure canning, the canning. Maybe you want to make some jam. Like I made jam this week, and you're gonna clean the fruit, but to make that happen. So if you're actually making food, you're gonna need how much water you're gonna need. That's kind of hard to estimate unless you really plan. Okay, this is what I'm able to cook or make. Maybe you're foraging mushrooms or whatever, and you want to make a stew or a soup or something. How much water is that gonna use?
You know,
Rice. How many of us store
Yeah.
rice? That
Yeah.
takes
You
a
wanna
good
cook-
bit of
you
water
gotta
to boil away.
cook
And
the
beans.
rice, cook the beans.
Yeah.
That's gonna need a bunch of water. So
we know, I think when we're estimating, I think it's easier for us to measure out, for the cooking and the hygiene and the drinking water and stuff. And it's kind of hard to do any kind of conservation of the water in those scenarios, because the numbers are what the numbers are. You need, I think, where you could save the water based on, some people might sit there and go, well, how much water did I use in my house? X amount of gallons per month. They'll look at their water bill. That's impractical. And most of that, I would say the vast majority of it is probably toilet. It's probably the most frequent thing, in showers. Because even a low flow toilet probably will push out what, Brendan? Gallon and a half?
gallon.
About a gallon.
Yep.
And, everyone's using the toilet at least once a day, but more likely twice a day.
I was going to say, and if you're just, if you're flushing every time you use it, we make a habit in our house, you only flush it when they're solids.
Yeah.
Because of it's on a well and it's constantly kicking on and stuff like that. So you don't want to be flushing that thing 3-4 times a day. Now, me and my son, we just go out in the front yard. That's fine. All the girls, not so much. But but the washer's a big one that a lot of people don't realize. Your washer's going to use, depending on how big it is, the style it is, how old it is, 20 to 50 gallons in the course of one wash cycle. I've got a football team for kids. My washer's running almost nonstop, but at least one load a day.
Yeah.
Sometimes 2 or 3, depending on how angry my wife is at my children.
Yeah.
They've been doing their stuff or not.
Yeah. So I think, our, reducing our water, use is going to come from those, and then the showers. So between the toilet, the shower, and the washer and dryer, can you guys think of any other major draws that would be easy to sit there and say, hey, you know what? We can cut back on that quite a bit. Yeah.
Cut it back? No. But the other areas that can add to the water requirements are physical activity. So like in a storm, you have to go outside on the road and clear it because a bunch of trees fell through.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I can do that. I have the tools. I have the physical ability to do that, but I'm going to be sweaty. I'm going to be dirty. I need to wash off. I needed to fix my car, or I needed to help my neighbor fix their car because something happened, and change a tire, fix the brakes, whatever. I'm going to be dirty. I need to clean myself. I need to clean the area. Maybe I spilled some oil. I need to clean that off. Um, and the other thing is sickness. So like, yeah, you got the freeze-dried food or whatever canned food you have. Maybe something didn't agree with you on that day. It doesn't mean it's bad, but your body sometimes rejects whatever
Yeah.
thing you eat. Maybe you had diarrhea. So now you have two things. You're dehydrated, you need to drink more water, and you need to use the toilet more. So how do you plan for that? Or are you just not planning to get sick at all?
Yeah. And, a lot of times, no matter how much you plan, then you got to figure out how to supplement, which
Yeah.
kind of be our segue into sourcing. Now, Pablo, you mentioned earlier about retention ponds, which you and I both live in like suburbia, and there's retention ponds all over the place. So the challenge becomes we have no idea what is in those retention ponds. There may be fish in there.
And,
Yeah.
fertilizers and
So the two big water sources that are so common in suburbia, they have a couple things in common. One, we don't know. Well, the retention ponds, we don't know what's in them. Pools, they're chlorinated, whether it's saltwater chlorine or regular chlorine. But people have the mindset, oh, I'll go to the retention pond or I'll go to the pool. I got this bajillion gallons of water in my pool. And you see videos saying, oh, yeah, you could just filter this or put this other chemical in there and it'll deactivate whatever, the chlorine or diluted or whatever the case may be. So from your guys' research, so we'll start with the retention ponds. What do we look for when we're deciding if we're going to try to take a chance with a retention pond? And if we do, what methods of treating, filtering, the whole gamut from that source can we do and at least reduce the risk?
Yeah, so for the retention pond, there's a couple of things to consider. One, there's a lot of animals that around here. There's cranes, there's rabbits, there's snakes. Those are the only ones that I've seen. There's probably a few more. Where they get water, they'll most likely go to the retention pond. Maybe they're pooping around the area. Is it actually going in the water? You don't know. As far as getting it out, I have the electric pump that I mentioned. As far as purifying that, there's some considerations that you need to have. There are chemical agents, which are like aqua tabs, aquamira, that kind of stuff. There's also this P&G water purifier. This one's geared more towards solids. So like if you have a gravity bag, you put one of these sachets in there, and it'll actually make all those solids go to the bottom, so you can actually take them out. But this is considered a chemical agent. You don't want to combine two chemical agents. So if you do one of these for the solids, then you want to run it through a filter, so that you have one chemical, one non-chemical. So chemicals will be these, the P&G, the Aquamira, that kind of stuff. And then for the non-chemicals would be a Sawyer filter, a Sawyer filter, the filter that I showed for camping, or you can use one of these, which is a UV light purifier. So the somewhat downside of this one is that we can't really use this on a 5-gallon jug. This is meant to use more on Nalgene style kind of thing. The place where I got it from actually sells these adapters, so you can just put it on the Nalgene, because ideally when you put this in there, you want to tip it upside down. and that's how it purifies. So it's really handy to have one of these. I keep it in a little tote. These have an internal battery, so I have a battery bank in here to charge it if I need to. I have a little solar panel to charge that if I need to. But I also have a purifying kit from Kano Provisions in this bag. And this contains wipes, bandages, antibiotic ointment, antidiarrheal tablets, and some rubber bands, and some purification tablets. So it's kind of like a one-stop thing to have as a little kit, and it's tiny. Just this little bag contains all of that. But yeah, when purifying, you want to try to keep that in mind. If you're using one chemical, the other one should be a non-chemical. Can you combine two chemicals? Yes. Is it advisable? No. You could also use bleach. Kano Provisions actually also sells a little device. It's tiny. You put a little bit of water, a little bit of salt, and it makes bleach.
Oh.
And it makes it in a small enough quantity that if you have, I think it's a 1 gallon jug, you just put whatever the little device puts out, and that's all you need to purify that 1 gallon water. And in a very tight spot, you can just use sunlight. Direct sun exposure can purify the water. It takes longer. I don't remember exactly how much time it takes depending on the container. So like if it's one of these containers, it takes a certain amount of time. But in a tight situation, you can use direct sunlight also to purify it.
What would you say would be like the time comparisons roughly for, and which one do you feel would be the fastest? So using one of the chemical approaches, the UV light, or direct sunlight?
I mean, from what I remember, the PNG purifier for the solids takes about 30 minutes. The water bag holds, the gravity bag holds about 1 gallon, maybe a little more. And that takes about 30 minutes for this to kind of go through it. Depending on the source of the water, you might have to do it twice. But at the very least, it'll be one cycle for 30 minutes. The Aquamira, I have to read the directions again, but it'll be at least 30 minutes, maybe an hour. The little UV pen light is just a few minutes. I think it's like, it doesn't take that long. It's 2, maybe 3 minutes. And then the filter kind of depends. If you have it on a gravity based, like after you do the solids on the gravity bag, you have it hanging from a tree or whatever, then you can connect the filter to that, and then gravity will just run the water through the filter. That'll take at least 10, 15 minutes. So within an hour, you could have a good source of water, at least a gallon. If you want to do a whole 5 gallon jug, then might take a little longer. But between an hour and 2 hours, you could have enough water for one meal.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important that we realize, well, what are we trying to treat for or prevent? And the way I look at it is there's debris, so we just want to pre-filter, use your handkerchief or a bandana or something like that. So you got as little of debris getting into your water as possible. Now, depending on the source, like the retention pond, and you're dealing with chemicals that it might have been runoff, and then the biologicals. Am I missing anything in that scenario?
No, I think the other thing I was going to bring up about the retention pond is in a long-term situation, long-term being a month or maybe more, like nobody has water, nobody has power. At that point, people are more likely going to be contaminating that source.
Yeah.
So
and
that's
most
also,
of your filters don't take out viruses.
Yep. So filter themselves won't take out the viruses. The chemicals will take out some or most of the viruses. I haven't looked into specifically which ones. But so that's why it's kind of like one chemical, one non-chemical. The chemical will take care of most of the viruses, and then in the case of the P&G, some of the solids. But the non-chemical, and I think the UV light takes care of some of the viruses, maybe not all.
Boiling is always an option too if you have that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and after all of this, you might want to boil it just in case.
Well, would you guys boil? I mean, so you get the debris out. Okay, so now you're just left with the water. So you're dealing with whatever chemicals and whatever biologicals. Would you rather boil the water and then try to filter it, or filter it and then boil it?
Filter then boil.
Yeah.
Filter then boil.
Filter then boil if I'm gonna drink it or use it for food. If I'm gonna use it for hygiene, or if I use it for medical. But if I'm gonna shower with it, probably not boil it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
if you're going to use comfort of warm water.
Yeah. But yeah, if it's anything food, drinking, or medical, then you might want to boil it.
Okay. So let's see. Let me make sure I got this right. So when we're dealing with retention ponds in a suburban area, their purpose basically is to catch the rain that comes in front of the houses or rolls off the inclines of people's lawns into the street in the little indented gutters, maybe into a sewer. Okay. And then they all flow into the retention pond, or what am I missing here, or am I wrong?
The ones around my house, they have one of them actually, there's a canal that goes under the street, goes across the street. So some of them, it's not really an overflow. I don't know technically what it's called, but it basically drains. It doesn't really go into the sewer system, but it actually drains away. And I've noticed that pipe actually goes under the street.
So a lot of them will have an overflow. You'll see like these big concrete squares with some grading on the top, and it's just there so it doesn't backfill into the neighborhood. It'll go into a pipe that either goes underground or runs off into a sewer system or whichever.
Yeah. And to touch on what Pablo said earlier about as time goes on, the water is going to get contaminated. And it might be because if the sewage system stops, it's going to back up in the street at some point.
Yep.
And especially if it rains, it's going to make its way to the retention ponds. So it does have a shelf life on it. So I guess people should incorporate in their plan, if a retention pond is going to be a source, go big soon to stock up. So one, you're competing with people less. So before your water even runs out, if you kind of you got to kind of hedge your bets a little bit. Because if you wait, huh?
You got to be careful with them. So I know, and again, emergency is a whole different thing, right?
Yeah.
I do a lot of fishing. I don't eat fish that come out of retention ponds. I do a lot of fishing in retention ponds, but yeah. I won't eat the fish out of them now. If I'm starving, sure, we'll think about it. But between all the runoff, between the pesticides from the lawns, the fertilizers, the road runoff, all the oils and stuff that's on that, those retention ponds that should be low on your resources. You should have a few things before that's your go-to.
Yeah, and I don't even know if there's even a convenient way to test those waters. Like, can you buy a kit off of internet or Amazon?
Yeah,
I have one. I used it on my tap water and nothing weird came up. But how would this fare against that retention pond water? I don't know.
Yeah, because the test would have to be geared towards what they think might be in there. And it's probably not in their interest to sit there and identify all the stuff they know is in those retention ponds, because they're going to be upsetting somebody. You're selling this product.
That's the bare minimum. You can safely assume any retention pond in the neighborhood, people are getting their houses sprayed for pesticides or their yard sprayed.
Oh, yeah.
People are putting fertilizers on their lawn, which a lot of that stuff that go down the rabbit hole of what glyphosate does to the body. There's 37 different types of cancer that'll give you. And then we know the road runoff. So between those three things alone, we already know there's 2 out of those 3 are already made to kill stuff. So So that's a big one too. It's like, are there fish in the retention pond? Like Pablo was saying, are there animals around it?
Yeah.
If fish won't even live in the pond, probably just avoid it altogether.
Forget
But if
about it.
you've got a pretty decent amount of wildlife around it, it's a rather large pond, comparatively speaking, you know? So if the smaller it is, the less oxygenation it's going to get, the more that those chemicals and stuff are going to compound. If it's a larger pond and things can kind of dilute out, probably less of a problem, you know?
And maybe if it's after, well, let me think this through here. So we just had all this rain for the past 2-3 weeks. So retention ponds are filling up. But again, they're pulling off the lawns. Now, the only thing that would probably help is because it's been raining for so long, so much,
Diluting everything.
people are barely cutting their lawns, let alone throw in any kind of treatments and stuff like that. So I don't know how much like the lawn chemicals are sitting in the soil or on just on top, and does that get washed off in the first good downpour, or is it like residual and it's constant, like if something was radiated?
Depends on the chemical.
Yeah,
it depends on the chemical, but also it's not just that it kind of stays on the surface and then it gets washed off. It actually goes deep, because part of the things that I've read about wells is that if there is contamination at the top, eventually that's just going to make its way to the bottom, depending on what it is. So yeah, from that chemical perspective, it'll the way I see it, it will just drain into the soil, and then from there it can just go down to the pond. The chemicals I buy for my lawn are natural. But most people around here just pay a company to mow and fertilize their lawn. Those are the heavy chemicals.
Yeah.
So if you see people mowing their own lawn, most likely, from what I've seen, most people don't really use fertilizer or anything like that. I'm the only weirdo out there trying to fertilize the lawn. But if they're paying someone to do it, then yeah, most likely it's going to be a heavy chemical.
Yeah. Well, before we go over to pools, Brendan, since you're in a rural area and you have a very common structure on your street, like a lot of other rural areas, where it has those like ditches along the sides, and it'll have under the driveway, it'll have a pipe.
Culverts,
so, yeah. So it's kind of like not a retention, it's like a retention space. I mean, what is the purpose there, and how would you compare that to retention ponds when it comes to viability of utilizing it?
So you're going to get way more road runoff, but you're going to have way less of those herbicides and pesticides we were talking about. Well, shoot, when we went on the hike with Nate, we gathered water out of the side of the road ditch on my street and boiled it up and drank it. So now we went up away from the road closer to my brother's property, so we weren't having all that road runoff, but there was a farm on the other side of that, so I know there was probably some pesticides and herbicides in that stuff.
That's true.
So it's really hard to know, what's upriver of me, upstream from me, unless you are familiar with the area. Any ground water like that for me is like, it's an emergency, and I am filtering it and I'm boiling it. If it's a pond that's, and a retention pond and a pond off the side of the road to me are completely different. If it's a pond that's not around a bunch of residential areas, I'd feel a lot better about that. Not saying there's not contamination, but I'm weird about pesticides and herbicides being in my body.
Yeah. Well, it was a good point you brought up, because if you're at, say, we're in Dover, okay, or in Plant City, and at near the strawberry fields, okay,
a lot of glyphosate.
Okay, and then Florida does have a good amount of cattle ranching. That might be one of the biggest animal type farms, right? Cattle, maybe chickens after that. I don't know if there's any mass chicken, factory farms or whatever.
There's a couple around.
So I think there's a difference between a family farm, a small one like you have with just, small variety of animals versus some guy that's got 5,000 head of cattle.
Yeah.
Depending on how organic that guy is,
Yeah.
grass fed.
Well, even if he's not, and he's got 5,000 head of cattle, what's the, E. coli risk? Because now you've got manure everywhere and things of that nature. That gets into like viruses, where your little, Sawyer Mini isn't going to stop viruses and things of that nature. That's where you need to get into the boiling the water and things like that, chemical treatments, things of that nature.
Okay.
Like I said, for us, we have a couple of levels before we get to gathering groundwater. But if groundwater is needed, like, so we do the Berkey filter, as well as for like if I'm on foot or something, I have the little knockoff life straws. So we did a canoe trip earlier this year, and one of the things is we were drinking out of the river. Now I know the area roughly where we were.
Mm-hmm.
Was the water safe to drink straight out of the life straws? Probably. We erred on the side of the caution because I had my son with me. So we would get the 1 liter sports water bottles, fill those up out of the river, screw the filter on top, and then we're squeezing them into our, single walled stainless steel containers, and then boiling all of our water just to be doubly sure.
Oh, okay.
That being said, we also use that because we were all drinking coffee and beef broth the whole time, because for me it tastes a lot better than water.
Yeah.
So it's just that little bit of a morale boost.
Yeah. All right, so the next big water source that's out there that people might have the idea that they'll be able to utilize is pool water. So do you guys know what the difference is between, because I have some friends that have saltwater chlorinated versus traditional chlorinated? You guys even know what the difference is? No.
No.
So, all right. So
only
if we're
thing I
just
know
talking about
about
traditional, it's weird. You guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I keep hitting my mic. It's popping up. All right. So if we got pool water, would you guys drink the pool water, or would you treat it in some way and then drink it?
It needs to be treated. One of our new members, I was talking to her about that because she has a pool at home, and right now her water storage treatment plan is not very good. But she does have a nice size pool. I found online there's a specific filter. It uses some reverse osmosis kind of witchcraft that will just take the water out of the pool and then just directly into a jug, and it's ready to drink. You don't have to do anything else.
I have a secondhand story for you. I know a guy who was living out in St. Pete. Through a series of bad luck, got his water shut off. And for a month, they lived off the water in his pool. And through all of his research, he figured out that just off gassing it was safe enough for him. So in the beginning, he would get it, he would take it outside, and he would boil it for 15 minutes outside with him away from it, because chlorine gas, ask 1940s Germany on how chlorine gas works.
Okay.
Or toward the end, he was just taking it in a 5-gallon bucket and then setting it out in the Florida sun for a day, and then that was tomorrow's water. And then he would just rotate the buckets like that and just off gassing the chlorine that way. So
that makes
his
sense.
Family lived off it for a month or so, a couple of weeks.
Well, I mean, if that didn't work in some capacity, then we wouldn't have to add more chemicals to the pool.
Yeah.
So, I always thought that, would you be able to sit there and dilute the pool water. So separate it from there.
My concern there would be you could probably dilute the chlorine to a safe level, but if you've diluted the chlorine to a safe level, is the water you're adding contaminated enough that the chlorine is no longer killing what's the contaminants? Because if you already have clean water to dilute it, why are you drinking pool water? You know?
Yeah, like what water are you going to use to dilute it?
Yeah.
The retention pond? Or your,
yeah,
or your
I might want more pool water than I do retention pond water.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a good point. Well, it's like desperate people out on a boat or something, or they're on a deserted island. They
don't drink salt water.
Right, but they do it anyways.
No, there is, I've seen some procedures to get seawater drinkable, specifically on that deserted island kind of scenario. I remember watching a show.
I've tried two. I've tried distilling it, which worked really well, but it's super time consuming and then labor intensive because you got to build a fire and you better have all the stuff to do it. And if you're doing it in a little 32 ounce camp cook set, good luck. Now, if you just so happen to have a moonshine still on hand, perfect. You're rocking and rolling. But yeah, good luck having that on your boating trip.
Yeah, no,
the one I saw was a guy taking it and doing the like plastic bag over the top with a rock and a cup in the middle, and it's like a sun distillation, which I've done. That takes absolutely all freaking day, and it still tastes like salt water. That being said, it's not like unbearable, but I don't know if you guys, when you were a kid, your mom made you drink salt water every time you had a sore throat, but that was my home remedy, and it tasted exactly like that. So I mean, it's safe levels of salt, but
yeah, that's the one I saw. They had a tarp, a makeshift tarp with duct tape, and they used the sun to basically evaporate a little channel that they did, and then just drain it into a cup. It does take forever. They didn't say anything about the taste, but technically it would be safe to drink. Maybe not in really long term, but if you need for a day or two, that would work.
That's electrolytes.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, so I did it in a 5-gallon bucket, and then you have a beautiful layer of nice natural sea salt on the inside of your bucket after everything's all distilled down. So that's cool. I have kept that in the back of my mind as a way, Lord forbid things go that long term, that if we need salt, because as humans, we need salt to survive, we need the electrolytes used to preserve food, things of that nature. Going down, getting a 5-gallon bucket of seawater, and if I need to distill out just to get the salt, that's an option too.
Yeah. Oh man.
Which I think seawater is 4% salinity. So I'm good with math, but I'm not good enough to figure out how much salt per gallon of water you're going to get off the top of my head.
All right. So the next big topic is water storage. So this is a variety of different things. I mean, we'll start with the apartments. I think the aquatainers are good, or water bricks or something. I mean, even the cases of water from Zephyr Hills that I get, they can fit in a closet.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's very doable for people. You always see videos of people saying, "Oh yeah, put your bed on blocks, and you can store all your preps under there." Yeah, but you know what? Most people that are living in an apartment, they're not living like they live in a rural country house where you'll do that. There are a lot of them are younger. They're not gonna want people to. They're going to IKEA or Wayfair and buying a cute bed, platform bed. Okay, so take like the millennials. So somebody's in the under 40 crowd. They're not putting cinder blocks under their box spring and mattress. Okay,
my bed frame is built out of 2x4s. You're talking to the wrong guy.
See, you may be a millennial, okay, but you kind of like you live in a
I have
country house.
custom built my bed to perfectly slide 5-gallon buckets underneath it.
Yeah.
So
Let's see. Oh, that's my boy Nate from Chicago. My man. Yeah, I asked him and Sam if either one of them wanted to sub tonight for Aaron and Derek, but they're both tied up. But we're gonna get Nate and call it Sam back on the show soon. And let's see here. What are you? Yeah. Nate's been pretty innovative for, an apartment dweller. Got to give him props there. But, there's no one silver bullet. I mean, I think, and if you want to keep like semi OPSEC privacy, don't look like the crazy person in front of your, bubble, your people, having the cases of water, no big deal. No one's gonna be like, you just say, oh, I really don't like tap water. No one's gonna really question it. You got your aquatainers, your water bricks. Some people, they get the 1-gallon jugs. They buy them for like $1, Publix or Target. Or they get the like the Zephyr Hills, the big 5-gallon things, and they got a little water cooler. I used to have one of those at my house when my kids were little. That was interesting. It was kind of a pain flipping that thing. I always spill water all over the place. But those, I mean, each one of those bottles is basically 5 gallons.
So with those, we have those all over here and all over the Georgia property. You can buy a pump for like $10 that just clips onto the top of those, and then it's a little hand pump.
Yep.
Dude, I love those things for that reason. When we're going out to the hunting camp, that's what we take. These 5-gallon jug with that little pump, and that's good for us for the weekend for like as far as washing dishes, just grabbing a cup of water, things of that nature.
Yep.
No.
When I was in West Palm in the apartment, that's what I had.
Yep.
I just went to Publix, fill it up. My workout for the day was taking that thing up to the 3rd floor. But yeah, that pump lasted years.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And you figure, you have 3 of those in a closet or in the corner of your kitchen. Nobody's going to bat an eye at it. And 15 gallons, it's not much in the grand scheme of things. But if it's a hurricane and power's out, so you figure, typically speaking, the cities get power quicker than we do out here. So if you're out of power for, say, 7 days and you're rocking a gallon a day, you got 2 weeks of water if you're a single dude, a week of water if you're a couple.
Now, when you go to Publix or Walmart or wherever to buy the big 5 gallons Zephyr Hills, are they still charging like an $8 deposit on those things? Or
so buying the fresh jug, it's going to be like $11 or something. But then to get them refilled is, 75 cents or $1 in places.
Yeah, okay. So then it pays for itself over time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I saw them on Amazon or some video. You can buy some kind of cap that'll, I don't know, not screw on, but fasten on to keep it kind of secure.
We always you keep the empty ones, and then you've got the whichever one you have in use, just keep that pump on top of it.
Okay. No, but I think Dom said to transport it from like the Publix or the store back to the house. Yeah, I bought some little caps on Amazon. They were really cheap and they were technically disposable, but when I pulled them off, they went back on. So
yeah, with all the stuff that we're talking about, I copied and pasted a lot of this information that I made the show notes on from my working water guide, and so based on what I had and what we're talking about and notes and ideas, I'm going to update my water guide on this. So we have some purpose. And I think those things are great for an apartment and they're great for a house. Now, when you get to the 55-gallon blue water jug, you kind of can't do that in an apartment. But if you do it for a house, you could probably put it in your garage. I don't know how much the heat in Florida is going to impact it. I know you can throw the bleach in there. What is it, like 8 drops per gallon or something like that?
I don't remember. I haven't done the research or math for that. I knew the Aquamira works for that. So the heat shouldn't be a problem because one of the ways people do it when they're outside the city in a rural area, the way they keep the water outside is that the container needs to be protected from direct sunlight.
Mm-hmm.
It'll still get hot, but as long as it's protected from direct sunlight, it prevents certain things
algae.
from growing in the water.
Yeah.
So the heat itself shouldn't be an issue, but as long as it's treated properly, you should be able to keep it there. So like
what were you
some
saying,
of the
Brendan?
guys from the Dirty Civilian, they have a bunch of videos on water, and they have a good collaboration with the people from Cana Provisions. And one of them has a 55-gallon ICB tote in his garage. Again, it is protected from direct sunlight because it's in the garage. And I don't know how much is needed to treat that and just keep it there. But that's his plan. Like he has enough room in the garage to keep that tote. And that's where most of his water is coming from.
So if you notice any of the like food safe containers for like the 55-gallon drums and stuff, they'll either be black or blue. You won't see a white one, or you'll very rarely see a white one that's labeled food safe. And the reason is, like you were saying, the direct sunlight. You don't want the algae growth. It's like when I get the IBC totes, first thing you do is spray paint them black, so it doesn't, allow the direct sunlight to grow algae. Now, at that point, if it were me, I would just store the water and not worry about treating 55 gallons, and then just treat it as I need it. Because, like you said, you might not need to treat all of it. If it's 55 gallons of tap water, and I'm pulling out 5 gallons to throw in the Berkey filter to sit on my counter for my family, cool, it's that. If I'm just pulling a gallon out to wash the dishes, if it's tap water when it went in, you're probably fine with just washing the dishes out of that.
Well, what if the algae grows? That's, I think, the whole point of the bleach, right?
Well, again, if it's a darkened container, the algae won't grow.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The direct sunlight is if you're keeping it in a garage and it's a colored container, like I said, they're usually blue or black. You're not going to have an algae growth. If it's a white container or like a translucent container, you could have algae growth, but like I said, just spray paint it black and then you defeated that purpose.
Yeah, I've seen the spray paint. I've also seen them, specifically the ICB tote. They take it out of the metal cage, they wrap it with black plastic, and then just put the cage back on.
Yep.
Yeah. When I was doing my deep dive into the water many years ago, that was one of the first things that I did when I really was knee deep in preparedness. I saw stuff where they said to don't put it on the cement floor of a garage. Either put it on like some 2x4s or a cinder block. And I don't know if it was because of leaching or something. I can't remember what it would be. Have you guys ever heard anything? Any reason not to let the container sit on the floor, the cement floor?
I can't think of one.
No.
I wonder if it has to do with airflow. Maybe it's in the colder areas.
Like a freezing.
Maybe like if you're in the Midwest or something, it could freeze. But I mean, even if you have it like on a pallet or something, if it's in the garage, it will most likely still freeze. Like, I mean, Cleveland will get really, really cold. Like one winter specifically, it was like 10 degrees for like a whole week. It doesn't matter what it's on, it's going to freeze.
Because it's so heavy, I was like, man, what if I have to move this? And I think I researched. I don't know if I found something was able to do it, but like you get like furniture dollies. Sometimes they make them round for barrels and stuff like that. I was looking for one that would fit for uh the 55-gallon water barrel, and get one of those so you can move it around the garage if you needed to.
Yeah, I think once you start getting into storage of that size, you're kind of you're getting away from the mobility aspect.
Yeah.
You start storing it by the hundreds of pounds. That's a more permanent fixture.
Yeah. Yeah. When I considered it, I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll get one, keep it empty in the garage, and then if I need to, I'll fill it up. But they're expensive, so just there's always other things that made it, because like you said, it's not portable. So, and
They're
I try to
expensive
keep
new.
Yeah, I was going to say they're
You-
expensive new. They're a lot cheaper used. Like I've seen on Facebook Marketplace, you can buy a used ICB tote for less than $100,
Yeah.
but you don't know what has been in it.
Yeah.
And
Well,
cleaning
sometimes.
it.
So there's a one of the places that I like is over in Port Lonesome, and it's a honey factory, and they sell ICB totes for like $100, and it's just they're full of honey. You take a pressure washer to it, and then just drain it out from there. Same with the 55-gallon barrels; they sell those for $10, but it's got an 1/8 inch of honey on it. Now those are all metal drums. Last time I went out there, we got 10 of them, and I started a fire, and I would just set them up at an angle with a fire under one side, so all the honey would melt and drain into one barrel. We filled 8-quart jars with the richest honey you've ever tasted.
Wow. That is cool.
But we got them for $10 a barrel. And like I
Yeah.
said, the IBC totes were $100.
Well,
Now I've used IBC totes with chemicals in them, herbicides and things like that. Pressure wash it out, Dawn soap, just constantly scrubbing and rinsing it 3 or 4 times before I put any potable water in them. Rinse it out, clean it, let it air dry for a day, rinse it out, clean it, and just do that repetitively until you're confident with it.
Yeah. And, I guess the more you do that, the more you dilute it. And, and in reality, we expose ourselves to so many chemicals. We microwave all kinds of different plates. I remember seeing something on Facebook today, and I'd seen this before somewhere else, where like the little black food trays. Now, I don't know if this is true or not, but it was just like, oh, they're saying that's made out of recycled materials like electronics and different things like that, other plastics. So every time we sit there and use a recycled product that's plastic, it was something else before. So it's been treated when it was originally made. It was treated when it was recycled. So I guess we really can never escape it. So I guess your method is just as good since we expose ourselves for everything else. And you haven't died yet, right? You don't got any green horns coming out of your head?
Luckily enough, I haven't had to dip into those water supplies for human consumption, but we have used them for the animals. We've used them for the gardens. During hurricanes, we've used them to flush the toilets, things of that nature.
Oh, yeah.
But
all right.
Animals seem to not care.
Yeah. And they're exposed to all kinds of stuff too. So, now what are some, let's see, we talked about those. We talked about water bobs. Let's see. Now, your stock ponds, is there any reason why you just haven't thrown a couple extra stock ponds? I mean, I don't know if they cost a lot or if it's a room thing.
Like a stock tank?
Yeah, with so much rain.
Yeah, so
it's kind of different way to do a rain catchment.
They're expensive. IBC totes are significantly cheaper. And comparatively speaking, you start getting into So the one I use for my cows right now is 175 gallon. So I think to buy one new is like $300. You get a 275 gallon IBC tote for $100. You know, the one I'm eyeing, the one I want to upgrade to, is a 700 gallon stock tank, but it's $800. Now, my initial thought at the time was I wanted to put tilapia in it, and that way it was kind of a 2-for-1. But now that we've done the pond in the backyard, I'm going to hold off on that until I see if this dries up in the summer. If it stays full year round, I'm going to start putting fish in that. If it dries out in the summer, then I might revisit buying that stock tank. But yeah, it's definitely an option. It's just a very expensive option. So they're usually made out of stainless steel, which keeps them from rusting. You know, it keeps stuff from like growing in them to a certain extent, but there is much cheaper ways. You know, there's always, you know, Nate used to laugh at me for it. He's like, every time I want to figure out how to do something, I research it, figure out what I want to do, and then I ask Brendan because he'll find a way to do it for a third of the price. And it won't be as pretty, but I'm cheap. I'm real good at cheap. You know, so as far as that goes, so like our first rain catchment system, right? It was one little gutter off the side of the house into a steel 55-gallon drum, and we only used it for watering animals and watering the garden. And what I did to get the water out, they sell these little brass you know, fittings that have a marble and a spring on them, and they hook onto a vinyl hose. And you just set them down in there and you shake it up and down. And so when you shake down, it pumps water in, and when you lift it up, the marble seals it and it creates a siphon. And that works great as long as your water level's higher than whatever you're trying to fill up, a 5-gallon bucket or whatever. So that's an option as far as siphoning. Wouldn't help you in the case of like getting water out of a pond or a creek because you would be higher than the pond or the creek. But we did that 55-gallon drum for years. Never had a problem with the animals, never had a problem with the garden. Upgrade to a, you know, 275-gallon tote. Had that for a while. I modified it. I cut the top off it. And now it's got fish in it. And by fish, I mean like mosquito fish, guppies, things like that. Because I'm constantly putting mosquito fish and minnows and things like that in my stock tanks around the property because it keeps the mosquitoes down. Because if you've got 4 or 5 open bodies of water, it's Florida. We have, what is it, 3,700 different breeds of mosquito in the state of Florida. I don't need them at my house. So you throw minnows in all your open bodies of water. I throw a dozen minnows in each stock tank like once a year, and they usually live throughout most of the year unless it's a particularly hot summer. Sometimes they don't make it, but staying in that IBC tote in the front yard, they've been out there for 3 years. I threw a 5-gallon bucket full of minnows I got out of that ditch in front of my house during a hurricane one year. They've just been breeding, doing their thing. I don't feed them, just let nature take its course. And now I've got, you know, almost 300 gallons of water should I need it. Well, like I said, we have dipped into it for animals during hurricanes and things like that, but it's just a backup to a backup.
Yeah. Well, I forgot to mention earlier. So I thought about some alternative access points for water sourcing that we talk about more like in the get home bag kind of way. One would be buildings using the Silock key? Is that how you say it?
Silcock key.
Silcock key, yeah. And yeah, exactly. Those are all pretty standard, right? Everything has one of at least those 4 different heads.
That's what it's supposed to be, yeah.
Yeah. You know, there's gonna be X amount of water in a commercial building. I don't know how, you know,
I don't know how long that's gonna last though. You know,
right.
because everything's gravity fed, so it's by the time you get to it, has it been drained already by somebody else or by the tenants of said building? Has it
Yeah.
gone out of the pipes back into the water main because you don't have the water pressure of a water tower? I don't think those would be super effective for anything past 3 days to a week. That being said, I have one in all my trucks, so
Yeah.
I'm not saying don't have it. I'm just saying that I don't see that as
Yeah.
a viable long term thing.
Well, it's like
what's
giving
his name? Who's the
it's
guy
giving
you
you
like?
options.
The Canadian
Canadian prepper?
preparedness, or
Yeah.
Canadian prepper.
Yeah.
There was a video he did years ago talking about hot water heaters. Oh, your hot water heater, is going to hold 40 gallons. Well, if yours runs out, you could go to your neighbor's house and like, man, you're not from Florida. You're going to get shot.
Yeah.
Trying to go into your neighbor's house for his hot water heater. But even that, that's going to drain out relatively quickly.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but then if your neighbor's not draining the hot water heater, it's going to have a lot of sediment. Like
Yeah,
the rods and the water heater just degrade over time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. So when you get a hot water heater, it says in the manual you're supposed to drain that thing every 6 months. That being said, I've never met anyone who drains their hot water heater every 6 months.
Pablo does.
You don't count, Pablo, because like you go by the book and you're a class all your own. I strive to be like you. I never will be, but I strive to be like you. But I changed out the heating elements on my neighbor's hot water heater a couple months back. Dude, it was like 50% full of calcium and all that junk in it. And it took me like 40 minutes of flushing and flushing and flushing. And then we still ended up having to go back, pouring a gallon of white vinegar in there and letting that sit overnight and then flush and flush and flush again the next day. And even then, there's still sediment in it. I just wanted to get it low enough to where it wasn't on the elements burning them out.
Yeah. Well, what do you guys think about fire hydrants? I know when I was a kid, we used to go crank them open on the street, being an urban boy. But I don't know how long that stuff would last.
Fire hydrant is even close to me.
I don't remember seeing one like close enough that I could walk to it and actually get something.
And I don't know how secure they are these days.
Well, I think it's just pipe wrench will get into them, but that goes back into that's determinant on is there a water tower close, keeping pressure in the lines. I think water towers are only set to service their area for like 72 hours.
Yeah, and you don't really see a lot. I mean, any water towers you see are relatively old. I don't think it's really utilized as a mechanism in modern construction.
It's like if you have a well, it's the pressure tank on your well. The only thing it's there is to add water pressure. It's not a storage tank. It's just using gravity to apply pressure to the lines. It's not really used as a storage container.
Can you think of any other kind of like alternative sources?
Natural water, rainwater, those are going to be your biggest ones. We do live in Florida, so there are the benefits there that we do have freshwater sources pretty close just about anywhere in the state you go. It's not a politically correct term, but a gypsy well is something you can make where it's literally just dig a hole somewhat close to a water source and let the groundwater seep into it. And now you have, sediment filtered water. You might have solids like sand and silt and things like that, but it's going to be filtered in the case of like, you're not drinking any bacteria that's in the water or viruses flowing down the water if it's a creek or a pond or anything like that.
Well, that brings up an interesting question for me. So, because I remember as a kid playing in the beach, I would sit there and dig a hole X amount of feet from the water, and you could dig down deep enough, water comes up. Now, I'm wondering, how salty that water is.
Significantly less. So that was one of the things we did when we did a thing a few years ago where we did the water desalination through the distillation. We did the, solar distillation with the plastic that we were talking about earlier. But that was one that, like, as far as just getting water, we dug the hole, let that fill up, and then we would take a bandana, soak the bandana, and then drain that into a cup. Still salty. It was less salty than the solar distillation. And I mean, it was perfectly drinkable,
Wow. Interesting. All right. Let me make sure I got all the notes here. Let's see. We talked about that. And yeah, that's all the major topics. So, do you guys have any water related topics you guys want to bring up that I haven't already brought up?
No, the only comment is you're probably going to need more than you think.
Yes, 100% to that. But like I said, it's just a matter of, I think a lot of people get the paralysis by analysis, or it's like the whole, like they see this grand overarching thing where, okay, I want 3 gallons of water per person per day. There's 5 people in my house, so that's 15 gallons a day. Times that by 30. Oh my God, I need 450 gallons of water. I'm never going to get that. Stop, take a breath.
Yeah.
Start with your bare minimum. Get the $10 filter. Okay, you got the $10 filter? Cool. You're not going to die. You might only drink a cup at a time, but you're not going to die. You have a steel pot lying around, a cooking pot. You can boil water. Congratulations, you're not going to die. Again, we live in Florida. There's water everywhere. You might be doing a lot of work, but you just start small, work your way up, and eventually build your way up to bigger and better filters. Then maybe you have 5 gallons of water in the house. Then maybe you have 15 gallons. Then the 55-gallon drum, if that's an option, and just move your way up. It's just like anything. If you're freaking out thinking, oh, I need 5 years of food storage, I'll never get that, I'm just going to die. Well, let's start with 30 days. Then go to 3 months. Then go to 6 months. Then go to 9 months, a year, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, whatever you want.
Yeah.
A gun. You don't buy a gun and 10,000 rounds of ammo. Pablo, keep your hand down.
Yeah.
But buy a gun, buy 100 rounds, shoot with it, get comfortable with it. Then every time you go to buy ammo, buy what you're going to shoot with, and then buy the same amount to put away. And then you'll build yourself a little nest egg. It's like, the what do they call it? With the prepper pantry, it was a huge thing, the copycat buying. Buy what you're going to buy for the week in your canned goods, and then just double it, and then just put one back. If you do it, if you start small and work your way up, before you know it, things are gonna be built around you. We all have this idea that we are going to need this stuff for whatever reason. I have been collecting prepper supplies for well over a decade. I have used more prepper supplies doing the disaster relief and doing hurricane stuff here than I've ever needed them for any societal collapse, any economic collapse, whichever, So the fact is everything going down tomorrow? Probably not. So you've got time. Take a breath. Start slow, build your way up. And if nothing goes wrong in 3 years, 5 years, whatever, you'll have everything built up. If everything goes wrong next week, but you have that $10 filter, you're better than the guy who doesn't.
Yeah. Well,
like in my case, like I get groceries once a week because I like just eat fresh food, and I get enough for it to last a week. If you get groceries once a week, once a month, buy 1 case of water and put it away. Like when the way I buy it is when I go to Publix, I see buy 2 get 1 free. when I see that, I get 3, and I only pay for 2, and I put them away. So, like Dom, when you were at the house, like, do you see water anywhere?
No.
I have enough water to rehydrate 3 months worth of freeze dried food and drink. You didn't see it,
No.
but it's here. It's in a closet somewhere.
Yeah.
So it's not
That-
interfering with anything. But
That's an important distinction I'd like to add too. Keep it separate from your usual go through stock. So, Dom, I know you have kids. I have kids. My wife she would, do the copycat thing with our waters. Well, the problem is kids are running in and out. They're grabbing. They don't know the difference. So if it's all in the same area, kids are grabbing.
Oh,
Kids
yeah.
make it hard to store food and water.
yeah, I usually don't
Keep it
use
separate.
it that often. But yeah, everything's in a closet, and
Yeah.
I don't touch it.
Yeah. And that's a great point because it's funny. It's interesting because you go into Pablo's house, you would not know that he's into preparedness. There's not the only thing.
I
I don't know
like
if
this house is immaculate, like it's being shown to be sold.
Oh yeah, and I'm telling you, I think the only other than when he was showing me stuff, the only thing that's like out in the open, and it might have just been because we were talking about it or he was doing something with it, was his solar generator. Okay.
Oh yeah, that's in the living room because it's next to the sliding door. Because if I need to use the panels, and the panels are in the backyard, I just run the cable through the sliding door, and it's right there.
Yeah.
That's the
And
only
then-
reason I keep it there, because I don't want to keep moving it all the time.
Yeah. And then he had
Otherwise, it'll be in a closet.
the Target card from the your simulator. I think that was out. Or you pulled it out when we were showing me something. But yeah, you would never know. Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
walk into my house and it's immediately, oh, you're one of those crazy survivalist people, aren't you?
Oh yeah, my house. You walk into my living room. I got solar panels. I mean, there's all kinds of solar gear. You forget about it. And then you go upstairs. Man, it's everywhere.
What's the old Viking preparedness thing? If your friends don't think you're the crazy prepper, you're not doing enough.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, you could. I'm in my bedroom when I do these podcasts. I mean, I got maps on my walls. Okay. I mean, I don't put decorations up. My daughter's rooms are different and stuff like that. They're totally girly rooms or whatever. But yeah.
Well, mine are all gun racks and fishing pole racks.
We wear it on our sleeves. All right. Well, that was a great conversation, guys. I appreciate you guys joining us. And, once again, everybody out there, water plan. I mean, that should be one of the first things. It's the easiest really to get started. Like the guys were saying, go to Publix, go to Sam's, grab a case. If you normally drink, 2, get an extra one. You can do that with, some of your food or almost anything. But water is your most important thing. Was that rule of threes, right? Was it 3 minutes without air? Well, 3 seconds without hope. Okay,
yeah.
Right? But
I prefer 3 seconds without a plan.
Yeah.
You got to get a plan together, even if it's a shitty plan. A shitty plan's better than no plan. But yeah, 3 minutes without air, 3 hours in inclement weather, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food. Which again, all gross oversimplifications. You go a day in the Florida sun without water and tell me you're not, tell me you're operating at 100%. It's
oh yeah, no. If you're walking out in the sun doing a hike, you're getting cooked.
so I've gotten to the point to where I've been slowly moving away from where in the past, if I know I'm going out on a 3-day camping trip or a 3-day hunting trip or something, where I used to, it was, in the beginning, I feel it's like gear. Let's focus on the gear. And through gaining different skills and different experiences, I pretty much minimalized gear. And then I just slam packed calories. It was, my bags were mostly calories. And now they've kind of reverted away to mostly water with calories in addition to. You can go way longer without food than you can water. You know, me and my wife, we do 3-day fasts regularly. So if it's a 3-day trip out in the woods, I might bring an MRE a day, maybe 2, depending on, you know, where I'm going, how far away from civilization I'm going. If it's something like I'm 2 miles away from a major road, probably an MRE a day. If I'm going to where I'm an hour drive from civilization, I'll bring full rations. I don't want to be stupid and end up putting myself in a situation. But
Yeah. We know No Soup on Head commented, I really need to plan more. We all do. I mean, as much as we plan and stuff like that, there's always something else we could either plan for the first time or revise. I've had many conversations with Brendan and Pablo off camera and stuff, and we're constantly revising our stuff. And people that are out there, reach out to us in the comments, email us. We have no problem sitting there helping you guys out, get you jump started, answer a question or two, whatever. If you're in our local area, man, hop in one of our networks, come out to an activity, go break bread and, help you get started. The main points we've mentioned it many times. It's the camaraderie. Everything else is just a means for us to hang out, to chat, build relationships, and help each other out. So, all right, everybody. That was a great show. Remember to like and subscribe. Please share the video or our information with other people. We want to build up that subscriber count. Please give us your ideas and comments about the content. And, one thing I do want to mention at the end of this. So there was a comment on one of our video shorts, and the guy was like, hey, look what you're doing. Basically put a little effort into the editing and it would have been a great video. So I watched the video. It was a little rough, choppy in the beginning, but it was good. I explained to the guys, like, look, all these shorts, we're experimenting with AI generated shorts and kind of seeing where that goes. They're meant to just pique some interest into you watching the full episode. So yes, it would be nice if, I had the time to edit every one of those shorts or actually dive into the episodes and create the segments and blocks, but we do this for fun. So we spend enough time prepping for the show, doing the show, editing the non-AI content at this point. But I appreciated his feedback. A lot of times you get negative stuff out there and people just criticize, and this person took the time to make a comment and said it would have been good, so I respect that. He said something, and it seems like he was short, just the editing was a little not to his liking. Totally get it. But what I'm telling you guys is what I replied to him and stuff like that. Just watch the full episodes. We're trying to keep them down under 2 hours. You can pause them, start them as you can as you get the opportunity. But yeah, hopefully in time we'll be able to evaluate all this, evolve all of this, so we won't need as much editing for the shorts and what have you. But don't give up on us. We're getting better every day. All right. You guys have a great week and look forward to seeing you guys next time.